It's great to be joined today by Jen Senko, award-winning filmmaker of the current documentary film release, The Brainwashing of My Dad, now available on demand and in select cinemas. Jen, you sort of tell the story of the impact of right-wing media, Fox News, hate radio, etc., on society through the lens specifically of your dad, who growing up was a relatively liberal guy, right?
Yeah, I don't even think that they thought of themselves as liberal. I think that just his nature and the way he was raised, they just were. They just were very open-minded and loving everybody. My dad would just literally talk to anybody. I never heard any bad, comments about races or certain people or anything like that. They didn't even gossip.
And talk a little bit about how you sort of were confronted with these changes that your dad was experiencing. Was it that first you saw him consuming some right-wing media and you later noticed the change, or did you first notice the changes and then sort of figure out what he had been watching and listening to?
No, he would pick me up in the car, and I would hear this nasty guy called Bob Grant,
Hmm.
who is the bombastic, openly racist, sexist, homophobic radio personality. I think that's fair to say. And I would hear that, and then a couple things would happen. Like he would start reacting in a very uncharacteristic way to things. Like I don't know if you saw the movie, but for instance, I give an example about how I was coming down from New York to visit them, and he picked me up at a Hooters. I mean, he picked me up at the bus station. Sorry, I wasn't at a Hooters. Um,
We'll talk
and
about that later.
oh, yeah, right. My other life. He picked me up and we passed the Hooters, and he said something about feminists um, not wanting women working at Hooters with their breasts hanging out. And I said to him something like, "Yeah, maybe they have a point." And he got so angry that he threatened to pull over and make me hitchhike home. And I was thinking to myself, I bet he never walked into a Hooters before.
Hmm.
And just things like that, suddenly talking about SUVs and how wonderful they are. And this from a man who made us all keep a book which he kept in the car. Whenever we drove the car, we had to write down every single cent of gasoline that we put in the car. So just these uncharacteristic things that he would come up with and just surprise us with, and he'd be so angry about them.
And there's a
That
couple
was
specific stories you've told, which are number one, that your dad at one point went to a group of people smoking outdoors and said he loves the smell of cigarette smoke, and also that he stopped wearing seat belts. And both of these, if I recall correctly, are connected to Rush Limbaugh, right?
yes. He was Rush Limbaugh was his hero, and I knew that he had been getting more and more and more influenced, and I I just couldn't believe it when we stopped outside our favorite restaurant and these people were sitting outside smoking, and he inhaled deeply and just said, "I love the smell of cigarette smoke." It reminds me of the time I used to smoke, and I didn't say anything in front of those people. But when I got in the restaurant, I said, "Dad, he never smoked." He smoked a pipe. He says, "Ah, you just never saw me. Yeah, I smoked." But there's nothing wrong with people smoking, and why do they have to be sent outside to smoke? Which later I found out, Rush Limbaugh was saying. There's no harm in smoking cigarettes or secondhand smoke or any of that. It's all, and you don't have to wear seatbelts. It's something that Ralph Nader made up. So my dad refused to wear seatbelts, even after he got uh, several tickets, which he didn't tell my mom about.
Wow. And in the film, I mean, like I said, you use your dad's specific story to tell the broader story of this sort of right-wing media narrative and prevalence that we've seen, and how it has really shifted the debate in a way where totally factless, baseless ideas are being given a sort of legitimate place in political discussion, and that's really the broader change that we've seen as a result of this right-wing media growth, haven't we?
Right. I mean, doing the film, uh, people just heard about it, you know, either through Kickstarter or whatever. And I had hundreds of people writing me saying that, you know, pouring their hearts out that this is a problem in their families too. Somebody, uncle, aunt, brother, sister, you know, even granddaughter, at one point, were angry and consumed by this media. So I realized it was a phenomenon, and you know, I actually will take it a step further and call it like an epidemic, because it's literally making people like sick that they're not getting along with their relatives. And so this whole media cycle too, they can get their views, the same thing that they hear on like Rush Limbaugh or Alex Jones or Fox News, they can go and look it up on the internet by you know, at sites that are sanctioned by the right, and you know, these own think tanks, their own think tanks, research think tanks, and get their facts confirmed. So yeah, it's this whole what do you call it, like an ecosystem?
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly a vicious
And
circle
cycle.
and a sort of internal ecosystem. I mean, were you able to find any examples of people who had been brainwashed but were able to break the cycle, or individuals who were able to get a family member out of the cycle? Any success stories?
I had some people independently who told me that they um, got themselves unbrainwashed just by switching their media diet. One guy found Wait, Don't Tell Me on NPR.
Hmm.
And gradually he found that journalism was a lot better than what he was listening to on Sean Hannity or Rush Limbaugh. And he sort of deprogrammed himself. Then there were like Jeff Cohen and Steve Rendell, who wrote this book about Rush Limbaugh's reign of error. They actually did some deep deprogramming. I don't know too many family members offhand that were able to do it, but I'm sure it exists.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a number of ways into right-wing brainwashing, but not so many ways out, as we're figuring out pretty quickly. You know, I could sort of guess that right-wing media could either respond to your film by trashing it or by ignoring it, and I'm curious what the actual response has been.
Well, I was astounded to find out that Rush Limbaugh ranted about it for about a good 15-20 minutes on his show.
What was that like?
Well, I didn't listen to it just because I just haven't had time, and I don't want to give myself too much negative, you know, thoughts in my head. But friends said that he was, you know, he's saying like, how could I do this to my dad? He was what he was responding to was a New York Times review, which wasn't actually that great. You know, they said, well, she's just talking about something that we all know about. But yeah, it both scared me and amused me at the same time.
Incredible,
So,
incredible.
and then of course I
Yeah,
get,
go ahead.
you know, emails all the time from people like you're a loony lefty.
What's been the most sort of surprising reaction that you've heard to the film, either from someone who agrees or disagrees with your message? I mean, what were you most surprised about in terms of the feedback you've received?
Oh, I guess, there's a lot of things that have surprised me, but really the emotional reaction, I guess, that people get, where they say it's like they were drowning and it's like being thrown a life raft, like they get derive hope from it, and that really, yeah, I guess that's the most astounding thing is people's positive reaction, like, and that reaction is, a lot of it is relief and gratitude that I made the film, which fills me with gratitude, of course. So
Well, I'll
yeah,
remind
I guess.
everybody the film is called The Brainwashing of My Dad. It is available on demand. It is in select cinemas. We've been speaking with the award winning filmmaker, Jen Senko. It's compelling, and I thank you so much for talking to us about it today.
Thank you so much for having me, David, and thanks for um, repeating the website, and the brainwashingofmydad.com. People can go there and find out where we're screening, etc. Thank you so much.